to the first in a series of discussions that we're going to have about Global Tea Hut, the information in the magazines, what goes into the articles behind them, and the tea every month. And I'm here with Max, who's the newest resident at Tea Sage Hut, and we're going to discuss July 2014 Global Tea Hut. This is an amazing month to begin our discussions together because this is absolutely the best Global Tea Hut that we've ever done. In it, we reached two very important milestones. First, as most of you know, we've been talking about how we want to include more journalism. We want to travel to the source. We want to do more articles about tea regions and tea history and tea producers and farmers and introduce you to them and begin to explore the tea world together. And in this month, we traveled to Yunnan, and the entire issue is about our first Global Tea Hut trip to Yunnan. And in that way, you also are exposed to all kinds of tea wisdom and history and culture. So that made this magazine the perfect place to start recording these dialogues that we're going to do every month, in which we can talk about some of the background behind the articles, what goes into them, learn a little bit more, and of course talk about the tea and brew it and look at it together. The second milestone that we reached was the tea itself. We want, as we travel, to be able to source more amazing, rare, sustainable teas for you. And this month, not only did we source an amazing tea, but we made it ourselves, which makes it really, really special because we all put our love and light into it. About 15 Global Tea Hut members were there in Yunnan, and we processed this tea with our own hands, and then we mixed it all up together and sent it out to you. So it has a really positive, bright energy that's really inspiring.
Yeah, if you page through the magazine, you won't find me there, but maybe like you, I kind of feel like I was there on this trip to Yunnan, the birthplace of tea. If you've read a few issues before, you'll especially, I think, be really amazed at the color, the way the photos look, since the magazine is now printed on like better paper stock. The photos are really rich, beautiful colors. So, I think this was just a colorful place too. The place you really get a sense of the vibrancy of the people, of the places that they went to, the villages, the forests where these ancient tea trees are, where they've been for thousands of years, and also the spirit, the radiance of the people there that tend and protect these trees, which I hope you talk more about. It really brings you into that experience. And then definitely we have to talk about the tea, because not only do you get to be connected to this place and the people that tend to the tea, but you get to drink their tea, but also tea that was made by your Global Tea Hut brothers and sisters. So it not only connects you to where this tea comes from, but it connects you to this global community, which I think is really special. So I think, like Uda said, it's definitely the best for those reasons. It's kind of like the tea wayfarer, but you're connecting with people not just by reading and seeing your picture.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this such an amazing media source, is that there's no other media source that I know of in the world that is a media that is nonprofit and is using all the funds that are created from the media to build spaces that you as a reader can then travel to and participate in. And so there's this kind of journey from the magazine to the space and back to the magazine, in the sense that maybe you subscribe, you're in Poland and you subscribe to Global Tea Hut and you start reading about this community and reading about these people who approach tea the way that you do from around the world. And then your funds that are going to build and maintain the space that happens in this free tea center that we're in. And then one day, finally, you decide to come visit. And you fly here and you meet the authors, you meet some of the people that are behind the articles, behind this Global Tea Hut. And then when you go back home, of course the magazine's not the same. Mm-hmm. So there's this kind of like journey from media to space back to the media. And it really does make this a community. So many of the members know each other and are connecting more and more in so many ways that we couldn't have possibly imagined when we started this. So it's really beautiful. And this is one of the ways, because this trip, people from 6 countries came to go with us on this trip to Yunnan. Mm-hmm. And we hope that this is the first of many Global Tea Hut trips together.
Yeah, I think that given that the articles in here talking about going to the different places to to these forests in Ilau and seeing these ancient tea trees. I'm wondering if you can just kind of introduce us to how this trip actually came about. I know that we definitely want to hear more about Auntie I, as she's called, this kind of really exuberant, really spirited woman that is really inspiring to read about and, you know, feel so up close with.
This trip actually started a long time ago. It started maybe 2003 or 4. I was in Malaysia at a tea expo, and I met this woman, Ai Li Chuan, and she's such a beautiful spirit. She's bright and strong. Actually, at first I thought it was kind of amazing that this woman from this rural place in Yunnan was so like independent and her own businesswoman and strong. But it actually turns out that a lot of the women in Yunnan have even traditionally been strong and able to run their own businesses and very in a Western sense modern, and that's really great to learn that. But she's strong and vibrant and full of life and happiness, and you know, was hugging me, which it was really amazing. So right from the beginning, the two of us connected. And I could tell that she was a tea sister. Mm-hmm. And then she told me about her village, which is called Qianjia Zai. It's in the Ilau mountain range.
And what does Qianjia Zai mean?
Qianjia Zai is it means 1,000 house village. There was maybe 1,000 houses there at one time, or 1,000 families. It's an Aboriginal name. She told me about the village and the tea situation there. And I was really impressed because essentially what she said was that the forest is kind of guarded and protected, and not anyone can go in there, and all the trees are numbered, and they have a council, and trees that are above a certain age fall under the jurisdiction of that council. And so all decisions that are made about the tea or the trees has to go through that council. Mm-hmm. And the tea itself that's picked from these old trees is co-opted, so they share all the money and they share the decision-making process. And this co-op situation results in a degree of environmental sustainability and protection for the trees mm-hmm. that I found to be very unique. And I've never heard of any other region protecting trees in this way. There's other methods that are going on in Yunnan, inspiring ways that trees are being protected. But I had never heard of this way. Maybe it exists elsewhere, I don't know. But when I heard her talk about that, I was really impressed because I've been to Yunnan dozens of times, and most times I've left with mixed feelings. I've been inspired by beautiful people who are doing amazing things, but I've also been a little bit downtrodden by people who are walking on nature, and I felt walked on. And I felt hurt by a little bit of destruction of old trees. And many of these trees were part of the cultural heritage of a people for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so to me, when you see a tree like that destroyed, it's kind of like somebody spray painting on a Ming Dynasty painting in a museum or something. It, especially if you love tea, it can be jarring a little bit. So to hear that is what made me really positive about what she was doing. And then, of course, she brewed her tea, and done was the deal, because it's such an amazing tea. Mm-hmm. And she invited me to come visit her, and I felt at the end of that week of that expo, I knew one day that would happen. And, life happened, and it kind of got put in the back burner. This beautiful center opened, and I got really busy. And then in 2010, a really good friend of ours, Mr. Liang, went to visit her. And he produced a small quantity of tea that he brought back. And he called me when he got back and said, I visited and she sends her regards, and I brought back this tea. And we went and tried it, and this cake became one of our all-time favorite teas. And so many of you who have visited here got a chance to buy one of these cakes when it was still for sale. It's kind of sold out now. And taste how incredible it is. If you come here, you'll definitely, if you ask, we can brew some for you. It's a really amazing tea.
It is. And
really beautiful energy, beautiful flavor, everything about it, from the flavor and the aroma to the energy in your body and the way that it makes you feel. It's just an amazing tea, one of my all-time favorites. And so when it came time to take the first global tea trip together, immediately she came to mind. And the second aspect of choosing her was that I didn't want this trip to Yunnan, our first global tea hut trip, to have mixed feelings like previous trips. I wanted it to be really positive and inspiring, and we definitely successfully achieved that. We went to visit her, and her hospitality was amazing. The food was amazing, and seeing the trees and the co-op still there, still in place, everything protected, really left me optimistic.
My favorite part of the magazine, this issue, July, is maybe a toss-up between making the red tea that is sent out with this issue and you guys making it by hand with her, but also the king tree, the anticipation of seeing this really, really, really old, ancient tea tree and the energy that that it had. And maybe we could rewind a little bit before we talk about this month's tea, because I know that'll be something we'll want to get into also on the video. Just to talk about that and how it ties into the heritage of the place, and the amazing fact that it has been so protected with so much integrity, especially in this modern time.
Yeah, the trip to see the king tree was absolutely amazing. It was a 5 or 6 hour hike. First we drove for a while, and actually drove our car through a river with waterfalls on one side and on the other, going up and down over the rocks. That was kind of amazing. And then parked, and then up a couple hours of steps to a trail, and then taking the trail into the original place of the village Chenjiazai, which is now a forestry area, because they have foresters to protect the trees there. And then about another 3 or 4 hours even beyond that into the forest. So I think we hiked a total of 4 or 5 hours, it seemed, and got to this ancient tree, 2,700 years old. And you'll see it's right on the cover of the magazine. Also, there's some photos of it inside. Such a beautiful and amazing experience. One of the awesome aspects of it was to see the altar beneath it, and to recognize and feel that for thousands of years human beings have brought sacred intention to this place. And
reverence.
Yeah, it reminded me that they found these cave paintings in Yunnan that are like 3,000 some years old, and in the paintings some of them depict tea processing and tea picking and even tea drinking. But the vast majority of them are like the Aboriginal people bringing incense and flowers, and they're like praying to the tea trees. And all the Aboriginal tribes in Yunnan, they all believe they are descended from tea. And a few of them even believe that all life on earth is descended from tea. So there's this real deep sacred relationship to this tree being like the grandfather of this whole forest. Like all the other trees are its siblings. And in amazing concordance, all the Native Americans that I know have similar beliefs about plants, about there being like a grandfather or grandmother in every like cluster of sage that kind of is the, if not the eldest amongst those plants, maybe even the progenitor of all those other plants. So it felt definitely like this tree at the top was like the eldest of all the other trees that we had passed on the way up. And
how old is it?
2,700 years old. So older than Christ and Buddha. And absolutely amazing to feel that so much reverence had been laid at its feet for so long. And some of us burst into song, some of us cried. We all had our own personal moments. We kind of then held hands and said some prayers. Internally, I asked for... I'd been taught by Native Americans that when you find that eldest plant, the one that is either the progenitor or the elder of all those other plants, you ask its permission to take the medicine from the other plants. So if you want to pick some sage, you leave some tobacco at the grandmother or grandfather plant, and you make some offerings and maybe sing songs and ask, "Can I have some of your children and grandchildren?" So I asked him, "Can we take some of your grandchildren with us, and can we have that medicine?" And I was really inspired. I also, when I got down to the bottom of the mountain, I wrote this poem, which is in the issue. It says, "Ancient ones, sing us your song. Tell us of life without time. Tell us of life without separation. We will listen, as you listen to the mountain to the sky, and the sky to the stars." That kind of expressed my heart sentiment as I stood before that tree on that little hill. I spent the whole day on the way up. I tried to maintain noble silence, and the way down too, I tried to make it a really spiritual act for me so that I could leave this trip very inspired. It was a really great day, and it connected us, I think, and gave us permission to explore the heritage and tea of this region, and also to make some to bring back for you guys. So I hope that the grandfather's spirit is also in the tea that you received.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's really inspiring, especially reading that poem, seeing the image of the tree right beside it. It definitely looks like this all-encompassing force in the forest, and it seems like the people there, especially the way that they respect the trees and respect the nature around it. It's nice, I think, to be so richly, intimately connected with an example of what Global Tea Hut or Tea Sage Hut are trying to do, or trying to disseminate about wild, living, organic tea, to see it not as maybe a concept, but to see it that those kind of ideals lived out, and maybe diligently or in a spirited manner. And I guess that leads us on to the actual tea that came from these parts, right? So,
yeah, originally our plan was to create some shangpur and bring that back.
Mm-hmm.
But the weather had been rainy right up until we arrived. It actually rained the night before we were supposed to go on our hike. And I had a feeling though in the morning, it was still raining, it was pouring down rain in the morning. But I wasn't worried because we were sitting in this place filled with all this amazing tea and beautiful food, so even in rains we'll sit around and drink great tea. Yeah. But I still put on my hiking shoes, I had a feeling. And sure enough, right at like 9 a.m. the clouds parted. And all as we were hiking, the guides kept saying, we need to hurry, maybe it's going to rain on us. But when I got to the grandfather tree, I asked him, like, can we also stay dry? And we did. We made it all the way back dry the whole trip. So because of that, we had to produce red tea. Red tea is a fully oxidized tea. It's one of the easier ones to process by hand. There's not so many steps in it. So the tea is picked and withered, traditionally on bamboo mats. That's what happened for us, for anywhere 12 to 24 hours. And then it's rolled for a long time. This breaks down the cells and shapes the tea, further oxidizes it. Then it's usually oxidized a little bit more and then dried. So it's the kind of simple process. There was an extra stage in the tea that we made. I'll talk about that a little bit later.
And we have photos of that too as well.
Yeah, we have photos of that and...
making the tea.
Making the tea, yeah.
By hand.
By hand.
Really nice.
So Auntie I said, one really cool thing that you guys can do is you can all make a kg of tea for yourself, and then you'll be able to taste the differences in everybody's tea, because everybody's going to process, you're going to roll this for like 90 minutes, so everybody's going to taste different. And I said, no, we're going to mix it all together. And she was a little bit baffled by this. She was like, no. You guys want to taste the difference. She was really, she got on this. And then I explained to her what Global Tea Hut was. Right. And I explained that we were going to mix all of our teas together and then send them out to friends in 30 countries around the world. And she, she was agape. And then she was like, and she said, then yes. And then she gave 2 kgs of tea she made. So her tea is also in the group of tea that got put together.
Her spirit out of it, right?
No, yeah. She included her. She's like, yeah, then I want to be in there too.
Yeah.
And she, because on the day when we were making tea, she was going around helping people. So she didn't make any on that day with her own hands. Mm-hmm. So, but then the next morning when I told her what we were going to do, mix it all together and send it around the world, she ran and got 2 kgs of tea that she had made. I was like, include mine. I want mine in there. Nice. So her energy's also in it. As far as the processing, before we started rolling, she had us shake the tea, which is more of a process that happens in oolong tea, not so much in red tea.
Right. You're bruising the edges, right?
Yeah, bruising the tea. Yeah. So she had us doing this as it was withering before we started rolling. I thought that was cool that they had this unique processing method there. Which they also have a little bit for their pu'er tea. Their pu'er tea is a little bit unique from other pu'er teas because it's oxidized a little bit more than most pu'er tea. So it's cool to see a village that has a little bit of its own processing heritage too. Even if it doesn't extend way back in history, which it probably doesn't,
Right.
it might be a more modern shift. In Yunnan, it's very rare for Aboriginal people to adapt their processing very much. You know, different teas, the quality of different teas is depends on the trees and the processing of the person in different percentages. So if you take a tea, an oolong tea like Wui, cliff tea, it's at least half the quality is in the tree and half is in the skill of the person processing the tea, right? But pu'er is not like that. Pu'er is 90% the trees and 10% the processing. Pu'er is all about the trees. Where did it come from? The origin of the trees, the provenance. That's what brings quality in pu'er tea. So it was really cool to see a region in Yunnan where they've made some adaptations to suit their tea, and that was another thing that always excited me about the tea that NTI made as I drank it the first time, and in 2010 that cake, and then now again. So this month's tea in Chenjiatsai, they call it Daughter of the Forest, their red tea. All their red tea, they call it Daughter of the Forest. So it is a little bit unique because it's a little bit bruised, and so it has a flavor that is unique amongst red teas. Because it comes from old trees, they're usually made into pu'er. This one comes from trees that are hundreds of years old. Average is about 500. So it makes this Yunnanese red very much stronger and brighter than most red teas are, especially ones that come from plantations. It's a really impressive tea because also, in this case, as we said, we have the energy of these 15 Global Tea Hut members and NDI, right. And our hands are all on it. In fact, there's a picture in the magazine that's really cool. It's my favorite picture from the magazine. It's of all of our hands after we just got done rolling the tea. Right. And we've all got all the tea oils on our hands, and really, really cool. Maybe you and I can drink a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
That'd be great.
Open it up as though we were receiving it.
Very close to the source of it, where it came from, at least where it was sent from.
Yeah. Yeah, really nice. Want to have a smell?
Yeah, please. Very, very nice.
Yeah. I thought also as we brew tea, we could use this month's gift, which is this handmade bamboo trivet. Every month we send a gift along with the tea and the magazine. And this is a trivet for your kettle. What we like about it is most teaware is great if it can be used for more than one function. I thought this could also, if you were creative, maybe be used even to put your teapot on when you're brewing, like here, as a tea pillow. Right. But we're going to use it as a trivet as it was intended. So that's a cool aspect of tea today. And we're going to drink this as a bowl tea, which is just a simple way of brewing tea. Not so complicated as Gong Fu tea. In our tradition, we have 5 brewing methods. Some of them we have videos you can watch. Eventually, we hope to have videos of all the brewing methods. So this is a simpler one: drinking tea from a bowl using a side handle pot.
And for this month's tea of the month, are there any other ways that we might really enjoy brewing this tea, or is this maybe the best way?
Yeah, if you have a side handle pot. Another way is just to go with the oldest method of brewing tea, which is to just take some leaves and put them in the bowl and add hot water. It's the simplest and oldest method of brewing tea. And we encourage people to drink tea that way because it simplifies tea. It helps to make tea brewing accessible and easy. and to more connect with the idea that this is just leaves and water, and to connect with the spirit of the tea without all the human contrivances and refinement that can sometimes get in the way. Some people, they see Kung Fu tea with all the cups and pots and they feel a little intimidated. But if you give them just a bowl, any bowl, a rice bowl, say put a few leaves inside and brew the tea by yourself, they can, and they can start accessing it and start being with it. It's really nice to get to the spirit of the tea. And then later on, even after you've brewed tea many years, you see we still drink tea this way in this simple manner, so that we don't ever get snobby or pretentious and start thinking that we need ching pots and cups and things to make a nice bowl of tea. Tea is just leaves and water, and it should be simple, and it doesn't necessarily have to be so refined. It's nice to enjoy tea in a refined way, but
there's
I think
a time and place.
There's a time and place, and you can too much refinement, and you can kind of lose touch with the spirit of tea, which is about loving kindness. It's about sharing. Tea is a spiritual medicine. Tea is a Tao. Tea is also an act of kindness. Tea is friendship. And I don't want to ever come to someone's home and they show me hospitality by serving tea to me and open their hearts to me, and I internally I don't accept it because their brewing methods aren't up to snuff, or their teaware is not up to snuff, and I'm sitting there evaluating and judging them when I should be enjoying the tea and recognizing that not everybody is trying to demonstrate their tea brewing skills. That's actually my favorite tea story. Rikyo, who's the most famous of Japanese tea masters, he for some reason became friends with the man who delivered fish to his home. And he lived in Japan in a time when the society was so stratified that class was just such a huge issue. And people like him, he was a high lord, he served tea even to the emperor, and he was the tea master to the shogun. So he was definitely a noble. And nobles and commoners didn't really mix in those days. And rich people like him had everything delivered to their house. But it was, of course, delivered through some back entrance, and the women and servants would accept those deliveries. But for whatever reason, he was enamored with this fishmonger. And every time the fish was delivered, he wanted to know, unless he had guests or was busy, he wanted to know that the guy was there, and he would come back and talk to him. You can imagine in the beginning how nervous that fellow was. Having this noble come and want to talk to him, you could imagine him looking at his shoes and not knowing what to say and mumbling, I don't know how to talk to somebody like you.
Wondering why he wants to talk to him in the first place.
Yeah. But over the years, they became friends. Slowly. And one day, Rikyo noticed that this guy had something on his mind, something he really wanted to say, and was too shy to say it. And so he pushed him. He said, you can tell me anything. He thought he was going to ask for money. He said, I'll help you. We're buddies now. We've been hanging out. This is like 5 years later. They knew each other, And he said, you can tell me anything. You need some help. It seems like something's on your mind. It's been like this for the last few weeks every time you come. And the fisherman looked down and was nervous, but said, well, I've been talking with my wife a lot, and we both would really love to invite you to our home for tea. And Rikyo said, of course, and named the date, and so they set up a date. And so Rikyo took one of his high students to this fisherman's house, and they shared some tea and a little bit of a meal, and then they left. And as they were leaving and walking down the road, Rikyo said to his student, that was one of the most transcendent tea sessions of my entire life. And this really baffled the student. And they walked in silence for another 5-10 minutes until the student couldn't take it anymore. And finally he stopped Rikyo and said, Master, I don't understand. That guy did everything wrong. he bumbled everything. He almost dropped the tea bowl twice. The water wasn't hot enough. He didn't whisk it properly. It tasted nasty. Everything was wrong in that. How could you say that was one of the most transcendent tea sessions of your entire life? Enrico stopped and looked his student really deeply in the eyes, and he said, that man didn't invite us to his home to demonstrate his tea brewing skills. And it's a very profound lesson, I think. And very much expresses why we drink bowl tea, as well as Gongfu tea. The as well as Gongfu tea is the second part of the story that's left out, because the story ends there. Mm-hmm. But if you continue the story forward in your mind, you know that the very next day, the two of them are going to get back to the tea school, and Rikyo's going to start scolding his student again about how to properly do everything. Right, so he's very refined himself, and he has a lot of tea brewing skills, and he knows how to evaluate tea, and he knows how to drink tea and how to brew tea properly, right? But he hasn't lost his connection to the simplicity and spirit of tea. He's still able to drink tea with a simple fisherman and enjoy it. So this is why we around here try to practice a balance. In the next coming months, you'll see sometimes we brew the tea of the month in bowls, and sometimes we'll brew it gongfu. And during those different times, we can talk about the different energies between those different brewing styles, and hopefully give you some more brewing tips. For this tea, definitely, it's a real simple tea, straight from the forest of Yunnan. You're going to want to just get right to the spirit of the tea. The less between you, the better. There's so much energy behind this tea. Not just in the forest that it comes from, but in the fact that 15 of your brothers and sisters in Global Tea Hut put their own energy into making this tea, their own love. And hopefully you can feel that. So I know you were mentioning something about the first time you drank it.
Yeah, I didn't think you, maybe you won't believe it, but I think the first time that we made this tea here at the center, I didn't see when it was actually taken out of the bag that it was in. So I didn't know what tea it was. I came down to sit down, everyone was already kind of had their place at the table. And I remember drinking it, and of course in the very beginning your mind is still slowing down in the silent tea session. And so in the very beginning my mind is like, oh, I wonder what tea we're going to drink. And then after I did slow down, just very, very kind of happenstance, different people were coming into my mind. Of course, I had come out here right after you guys had returned to the trip, which was really nice. I got to meet Tianwu, and I got to meet Mia, and of course I got to see brother Andy, who lives in Taiwan. So we got to talk about the trip a little bit, but they were already gone for several days, and for whatever reason those people had kind of popped into my head. And you know, I'd only known them for a day or so, or 2 days. And then afterwards, when we were kind of breaking the silence, the noble silence, and talking about which tea this was, which is sometimes when you come to the center you want to know, oh, what tea are we drinking? So, you know, it was just said, oh yeah, we were drinking the tea that we just brought back. And I was like, oh wow, you know, that's kind of curious. I could kind of, maybe, who knows, I could kind of feel the presence of the people that were making this tea by hand. And I definitely feel like that's happened. That's happened to me also before here, when we've made other tea by hand, like grinding the tea by hand to make powder tea. But I think that's what's so great about this issue is it maybe highlights what's really so special about Global Tea Hut, is that it's so far from maybe say like a Tea of the Month club, which are really prevalent now from around the world. You're not just kind of downloading tea from some far away place and then maybe told a little bit about the village or the terroir. You're actually installed into a community of living people. You know, not only the people that are making the tea, but the people that are drinking it and enjoying it and writing about it, and in these photos. And so it's definitely been nice to meet some of the people here, but this issue I think is a way, an even cooler way to kind of feel connected to the community here. And so once again, you're not just drinking some tea selection of the month, you're kind of connecting to the members by drinking this tea, which I hope that maybe you can kind of maybe align your mind with when you do drink this tea. I think it's special in that it's the first time that's happened, that people in the Global Tea Hut community have had their hand in the tea.
Yeah, and we don't want to lose that, even as this magazine moves to more professional journalism and traveling and meeting people. We're never going to lose that like community aspect. We're never going to lose that sense of connecting to something, to a group of people who approach tea the way that you do, that love tea, not just as a delicious beverage, which it is,
Right.
not just as a healthy beverage, which it is when it's produced sustainably, and but also as a spiritual vehicle and as a sacred, with a sacred orientation. Being connected to others that have a sacred orientation towards it is inspiring, and you can learn a lot and grow together. And then that the monies support a center that you can visit and come and learn even deeper is really, really powerful and amazing. It's what makes this community really special, and makes the experience of the magazine really special. I think a lot of people ask us for some brewing tips every month. There's a lot of members that maybe don't have much experience brewing tea. As far as this month's tea, really just to keep it simple. You could brew the tea in a side handle pot, or you could put the leaves directly in the bowl. For red tea, you want water that's hot, like 98 degrees. If you're putting the leaves just right into the bowl, that might be a little bit too hot. Your bowl might be really hot, and the liquor might be a little bit too scalding. You might want to go down a little bit lower. But usually red tea likes a higher temperature. It's a full tea, very highly oxidized, so it's releasing a lot. It's dark. It's good drunk in the morning. It's got a lot of energy.
Yeah, definitely a lot of energy.
Yeah. This tea has, as far as its flavor profile, it's hints of like a slight sandalwood and some citrusy notes, and a really deep and powerful earthiness that starts to come out more and more as the heavy processing, because it went through so much oxidation, so much processing, so much rolling. So as that starts to be steeped out and you start to get into later steepings, you get to taste more of the old trees in this tea. It's very patient tea. When we say patient, we mean it can be brewed many, many times. This tea can be brewed dozens of times and it will still have delicious flavor, qi, which means energy, and color in the liquor.
Yeah, I think it would have been nice either way, no matter what kind of tea you did make that day. It is really nice to be able to taste this part of the world, the birthplace of tea, right in the bowl right away too.
And the extra bruising makes it a little bit less astringent than most red teas. It's got a little bit more of a smoothness and sweetness due to the extra bruising that happened in the processing. Really, very nice.
And of course, we don't want to maybe create too high of a bar that every subsequent issue of Global Tea Hut is going to have tea made by or processed by the members here. But I always liked another part of the issues, even before and of course after, is the tea wayfarer issue. We're part of the magazine that even though you're not drinking somebody's tea that they have made with their own love and their own hands, but you're still connecting to somebody across the world, which, believe it or not, is a Global Tea Hut member, and now after they've done the tea wayfarer, become featured, they're also in a sense contributing. So this month is
Anastasia. Yeah, that what you've said is really, really true. I mean, obviously every month can't be tea that we hand process, but we definitely want to move more towards traveling, as we've mentioned, and doing more journalism and sourcing teas, different kinds of teas, rare teas from further afield. The second reason, of course, that we want to travel is that through that we can collect organic farmers. People are committed to sustainable agriculture. We can kind of collect their names, and we dream that when the Future Center is built, we can host some like gatherings where we bring these organic farmers together from China and Korea and Japan and give them a space to have a kind of conference together without our agenda. Just, they'll know what they need to talk about. Tea is the second most consumed substance on earth after water. So obviously there's a huge agricultural influence on this planet. Sure. And so if tea can become more and more sustainable, not only is that itself a huge impact, but that can influence other forms of agriculture. And this community is going to be definitely a force in that as it grows and as you help us to make it grow. In making it a community, we right from the beginning had this idea of having tea wayfarer at the end of every issue. which is to introduce one of the members of Global Tea Hut, so that members of Global Tea Hut are getting to know each other around the world. And so many people tell me that, you know, though those are just names to me, I feel like I know them. Especially people who have visited our center and like heard stories about Tian or Ching or you know, Steve in Estonia, and then they become kind of characters, and then you read the Tea Wayfarer and you get to know them, and you feel connected. And they're definitely people who you could visit. There's that sense of like, oh, if I went there, I could visit. And some of that's already happened.
Yeah.
So this month was Anastasia, is a really beautiful young woman from St. Petersburg. She's a massage therapist, Chajin, a tea person. She kind of combines those two really beautifully. Right. And she has a studio there called 108, which is because amazingly its address is 108. So it's called the 108 Studio. And they do yoga and massage, and they incorporate a lot of tea ceremonies and tea into their work. And she was visiting at the time, so it seemed really right to make her the Tea Wayfarer.
Yeah, it's really cool to learn about how she combined her profession with tea, especially in this tradition too.
Yeah, it's really cool when you know you see through Tea Wayfarer that like the tea spirit is being channeled into all these other works around the world.
Right.
Like you meet the amazing Greg Wendt, who's a financial advisor, and you see that, wow, his tea spirit and his tea drinking, because he drinks tea every day, and his tea spirit's being channeled into the like corporate world and into influencing the way that business is conducted. And then you meet someone who does massage, and you see that tea spirit's being channeled that way. And so part of Tea Wayfarer is kind of seeing how the tea spirit is influencing the work of all these people around the world as well. Not just meeting them, but seeing what they're doing and how tea spirit is influencing what they do. Thank you for joining us in this first ever Global Tea Hut discussion. We hope you come back in August and join us again. And if you have any questions, you can email us between then and now at globalteahut@gmail.com, and hopefully we'll incorporate your questions into next month's discussion.
Well, it's been great being on this discussion, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy this month's tea in the magazine. And if you ever come out to Taiwan to visit us at the center, I'll look forward to meeting you.
And we're going to end you with a little bit of footage from our trip. It's a little bit grainy, but it's definitely worth a watch and a listen to. The first is a song that Tien Wu and Mia sang to the King of Tea Trees. And the second is Auntie Ai singing a traditional Kuchong tea song to us as we were all rolling tea. Very beautiful. Enjoy.
Cuando mañana aparezcas alondra, aquí estaré sentada con mi sombra y ayer se va el mar azul con tu contorno, espuma fría. Se va tu vela limpia, sabor de magia. ¿Dónde estarás, mi barca triste? No sé si esperar. ¿Cuánto le llevará